Welcome back, Lions and Dashers, to Mock Draft 3.0. This is our third and second to last mock draft that we will do. It is Mock Draft Monday, so we are going to do a first round mock draft of all the teams. I think next week I'll do a 2 round mock draft. Not entirely sure, depends on my timing and schedule and everything. But for today, we're doing a 1 round mock draft. Now, there's not been a whole lot of news when it comes to the NFL draft world. Nothing that seems really, I guess I guess you would call it like moving or in a way to where it's going to impact the draft. So nothing a whole lot has happened. It's kind of that stale week right before the big week, because next week is the big week. Next, not this Thursday, but next Thursday is the draft. So let's begin. So the Panthers, you know what? A lot of the last 2 weeks, Bryce Young has been pretty much linked to the Panthers here. I mean, he is the best quarterback in this draft class, I believe, but unfortunately, I cannot think and pass up on the fact that the Panthers will not go with CJ Stroud here, mainly due to his height. I mean, he is 5 inches on Bryce Young, and quarterbacks who are taller tend to be a little bit better. Obviously, that's changed in the last few years, but in the general aspect of history and still in this league today, tall quarterbacks do pretty much a lot better. Now, he is the prototypical Frank Reich quarterback, which, for those who don't know, Frank Reich is the head coach of the Panthers now. Um, he loves his quarterbacks. He loves his quarterbacks big and in the pocket. He's more of a traditional type of role. I mean, CJ Stroud is the most traditional quarterback in this draft class, being a pocket passer and his accuracy and his height. So I don't see really the Panthers going anywhere else with this pick outside of CJ Stroud. Alrighty, and with the Texans up next, I did just record a video about them. I haven't posted it yet, but what pretty much I said in there is that the Texans may not take a quarterback at number 2 pick. And the big reason is because potentially if the Panthers do take Bryce Young, I think they're going to avoid CJ Stroud at all costs. Mainly due to the fact that CJ Stroud's agent is the same as Deshaun Watson's. So there's all that drama there. But in this scenario, CJ Stroud was taken number 1 to the Panthers. So obviously, Texans need a quarterback. They're going to go with Bryce Young at 2. Alrighty, now I know this has kind of been a repeat of my last couple drafts, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the Cardinals trade down no matter what here in this scenario. Now, what is really interesting though is that I could see the Titans. The Titans have been rumored to move up for this pick to probably get like Anthony Richardson or Will Levi, whoever they deem fit. They like both of those guys. I think they'll probably like Anthony Richardson a little bit more because that team seems to be going towards more of a rebuild type of mode. But in this scenario, the Jets want to move up. I think the Seahawks are the most realistic one in this scenario. Um, so we're gonna see if we can get two first round picks to move up. And we did. Awesome. So the Cardinals got 2 first round picks in exchange for just their third for moving back 2 spots. So Seahawks, I think it's an obvious pick here, even though they did sign a bunch of defensive linemen in free agency. They're going to go with the best pass rusher in this draft in Will Anderson Jr. Alrighty. Now, here's the thing. In this scenario, I know a lot of you have seen me trade Lamar Jackson to the Colts, but with the fact that Anthony Richardson and Will Levi has fallen is really key here because I don't think they're going to want to take the huge risk on Lamar Jackson. Now they could, but I think complications just got a lot worse with Jalen Hurts as of today, this morning of the April 17th, signing a 5-year, $255 million deal, which Lamar Jackson, I bet you, is not happy about. The fact that he's going to get a deal and he hasn't had one, and he's arguably performed better than Jalen Hurts. So I don't think the Colts will be willing to risk that, but I think they will want to take a quarterback here at this pick, and I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson. Alrighty, and the Cardinals are on the clock. Now, this is a weird pick, and normally I wouldn't do this, but I think they're going to go with Tyree Wilson here. Obviously, Will Anderson is probably the best pass rusher here, but Tyree Wilson, they'll still get an edge rusher, which they need. 6'6", 271. The physical tools are amazing. Now, he may be a little bit of a project because his grades aren't spectacular, but you're buying in on his size and his potential, right? So even though they did lose out on Will Anderson, they get another first-round pick to use later to kind of build this team because this team still needs help. We are going to take Tyree Wilson. Alrighty, and with the Lions here, unfortunately, they're kind of in a weird spot because I was thinking, you know what, if Tyree Wilson's still here, definitely taking him because they need somebody out on the other side of Aiden Hudson to pass rush, right? That defense still needs kind of help all around, but unfortunately, Tyree Wilson was picked right before with the Cardinals. But what I'm thinking here is that one of their biggest needs for this Lions team is still cornerback. Now, I know I here's the thing. I know they signed a bunch of guys like Cameron Sutton, like Emmanuel Mosley, like Chauncey Gardner Johnson, but Cameron Sutton is the only guy that's outside of a 1 year deal on those two guys. And they still need a young cornerback to come in there, especially after they drafted or after they traded away Jeff Okuda, the former third overall pick. So I think they're going to go with cornerback here again, and they're instead of going with Devin Witherspoon, the more proven quarterback, they're going to go with Christian Gonzalez, a guy with the physical attributes, 6'1", 197. He can sit there and wait a year behind these guys to learn, master the craft, and then start playing immediately. I mean, worst case scenario, he's a star hit and he's cornerback one for the Lions. Worst case scenario, he starts next year. So we're going to take Christian Gonzalez. Alrighty, and with the Raiders here on the clock, we could see them potentially go back. Now, I highly doubt it, mainly because they have 12 picks in this draft and they don't need a bunch of additional picks for this year. Maybe they'll get a bunch of picks for next year. I highly doubt that they do that, but there is a chance here, mainly just because of Jalen Carter or Will Levi being here. Now, again, I don't think they'll do it. I'm just saying there's the potential, and if they do, there could be a team like, I mean, because there's 7 guys here, right? You could see teams like Texans or the Jets try and get up that tackle and Skaronski or a wide receiver here. I mean, highly doubt it. So we're gonna go with a pick here. We're gonna go with Devin Witherspoon. I know this is kind of a prototypical normal pick for this team, but we could see them go with, we could go with Peter Skaronski. Alrighty, and the Raiders are on the clock here. So unfortunately, they're kind of stuck in a weird spot because they could go with Devin Witherspoon, could go with Jalen Carter because the Raiders love to have criminal chargers or criminal charged people on their team. Excuse me, but I think we're gonna go a different route here. When you sign Jimmy Garoppolo to a 3 year deal, and even though yes they did trade away Darren Waller, they still have Devontae Adams, they still have Hunter Renfro, they still have Josh Jacobs, they still have offensive weapons, and especially in the AFC and NFL today, it's a lot more offensive oriented than it is defense. And you're not going to be able to have Jimmy Garoppolo play to the best of his ability if you can't keep him up. So with Skaronski here, now he is projected to potentially be a like tackle, but potentially guard. He's the most versatile offensive lineman in this draft, and the most polished guy in this draft. I think instead of taking a cornerback here, which we all expected, I think they may go with the tackle position because they've had problems with that for years, and the reason why Derek Carr has not performed to the best of his ability. So we're going to take Peter Skoronski. And the Falcons are on the clock, but not the Falcons for long because I'm going to do projected trade here. Now, yes, I am forcing it mainly because right now PFF is not really working with me, but I think this is a fair trade scenario. Now, the Falcons are the best landing spot after the Jalen Hurts contract situation just because the Atlanta Falcons can afford him more than really any other team that is looking at Lamar Jackson. I mean, they're going to be able to afford him by giving him draft picks, but also afford him in the fact of probably give him the money that he wants and deserves. And they're also the best landing spot if they want to build a team around Lamar Jackson, and giving up 2 first-round picks this year's second and then next year's third, I think is more than a fair offer for Lamar Jackson, giving him a deal. So we are going to force this trade. The Baltimore Ravens obviously accept it, and both parties are happy. So now, unfortunately, Anthony Richardson was picked at number 4. And so I highly doubt they go with Will Levi because he is not the quarterback of the Ravens. That would be the worst fit I think I've ever seen. So this is really interesting because I don't think I've put myself in this scenario. But the Ravens do need wide receiver, defensive end, and cornerback too. Now, Marlon Humphrey's done all right, and they did lose Marcus Peters. Now, they did spend a premium draft pick on Kyle Hamilton last year, and then also signed Marcus Williams last year to a huge deal. So that secondary is key. And then you're in the AFC. Again, how many times do I have to say it? That the AFC is very strong and very air-heavy attack. So with Devin Witherspoon still here, I think they go with him at the number 8 spot. Alrighty, and the Bears are on the clock here. So unfortunately, Skaronski's not here. We could see them go offensive lineman and like Paris Johnson or Darnell Wright, but I think they're just going to go with best player available here because I mean Jalen Carter was projected number one overall pick and is arguably the best player overall in this draft class. So they can't ignore it. It's one of their huge needs here, as I have listed right here, is defensive lineman. Sorry, not the Vikings. Defensive lineman. So we are going to take Jalen Carter. Alrighty, so weirdly enough, I'm going to do a projected trade here with the Patriots because I could see the Patriots moving up to try and get a wide receiver. Now, I know that they rarely ever trade up in the first round, and hardly do they ever land a player in the first round. But the Titans may be looking to add at the wide receiver core, so with so with the Texans, and so with potentially the Jets. So they probably want to jump up and trade and get somebody like Jackson Smith and Jimbo. We're going to see if they will accept it, and they do. So we're on the clock here. We could see them go with Quentin Johnson because they do have a massive need or they need to have a massive need at wide receiver, and this dude is very big, very tall. Now, unfortunately, he's not very flashy, but the size is what we're looking at here because the Patriots don't have size at wide receiver. Now I know Jackson Smith-Njigba is obviously the best pick here when it comes to the wide receiver aspect. And I know I was just kind of talking about maybe they'll probably trade up to get one. Um, but to be fair, to be honest with you, I think the Patriots will do something like a reach, especially on this guy with this big of versatility and athletic ability. So I know it seems kind of a reach, kind of bullshit, but the Patriots have reached on first round picks for years, and I think they'll trade up to do that here. Alrighty, the Titans are on the clock here at the 11th pick. Now I know Jackson Smith and Jimbo is a very very sexy pick here, but with Mike Vrabel, I highly doubt he wants to spend a premium pick on a wide receiver, and I bet you that he's probably gonna go with Paris Johnson or the next best tackle available because they did lose Tyler Lewan, and the Titans and Mike Vrabel, they love to be a physical team, a physical offense, win in the trenches on both offensive and defensive side of the ball, and you can't do that if you don't have any offense or really any offensive line. So we're going to go with Paris Johnson Jr. All right, and the Texans are on the clock for the second time at the number 12 pick. Now, again, Jackson Smith and Jimbo, he could very well go here. But we could also see them take Kansas here maybe as like a surprise pick. But here's who I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Lucas Van Ness. Why? Well, they need defensive help galore, and especially in the pass rush. Now, in years prior, they have looked at a guy in the mid first round from the Midwest and then took him because he was very physical, very athletic. You know who that guy was? JJ Watt. So we could see them take a dip on this guy or take a chance on this guy again. I mean, a type of guy like this again, 6'5", 272. He's very young. I mean, obviously he can improve, but this guy is a project, and the Texans are a project in themselves. So I think DeMarco Ryans will probably want to get his pass rusher of the future after taking his quarterback of the future and get Lucas Van Ness. Alrighty, the Jets are on the clock here. I'm doing a projected trade here. Now, yes, I am a Packers fan. Yes, I know the reports have not shown that Aaron Rodgers is worth 2 firsts and a second. I just can't ignore the fact that the Packers have been very stubborn and very adamant on getting a Stafford type of like trade from the Jets, and I think the Jets will be desperate enough, especially on draft night, to just give the Packers what they want. Because do they really want to go back home and say, "Oh yeah, Zach Wilson is going to be on our team"? No, we're going to stick with Zach Wilson, the quarterback. No, they're not going to. They're not going to want to. Their fans are going to hate him. The NFL is going to hate them in general. And the Packers, here's the thing: they've already committed to Jordan Love, right? And the team is not anywhere close to being in contention or rebuild, or they are in rebuild mode. But what I'm saying is that they're not anywhere in contention when it comes to the playoffs or the Super Bowl. So they can just let Rodgers sit there and wait if they're not going to get what they want. The Packers have pretty much most of the power in his hand, and the Jets have been trying to say that, oh, well, after his comments on the Pat McAfee show, that we were not going to give him as much as we want. Like, bullshit, dude. This dude is a 4-time MVP, still playing at the top of his game just because he had a down year with some crappy wide receivers and had injuries through the year does not mean that this guy cannot perform against your elite team. I mean, it's kind of bullshit. The Jets are trying to fleece him, but I think they're going to give him what they want on draft night. So I think it's going to be 2 first round picks and then the second round pick that they got from the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going to force this trade. I don't care if y'all like it or not. I think this is what's going to happen. So with that, the Packers are on the clock with 2 picks in the next 3, I think they're gonna try and get Jackson Smith and Njigba here. Now I know a lot of times they do not take wide receivers. I know, but here's the thing: I think a big reason that they haven't taken wide receivers is because the 2 wide receivers that they want are taken before them. There was in the last couple prior years, it looked like that they had their hopes and their looks on some of these guys, and then next thing you know, they were picked, and then they were kind of stuck, and they kind of were forced to just take defensive players due to their position in the draft, right? But now that they have the 13th pick, they're gonna be able to get the wide receiver one of the draft class. I don't think they're gonna want to pass that up. I mean, they need to surround Jordan Love with weapons, and I think they'll take Jackson Smith and Jibba. And with the Eagles on the clock after they traded back down, I think they're going to still get some defensive help on this side of the ball. We could see them go with Brian Branch here. That would technically be a reach, but it's definitely a position of need. But I think they're going to invest in that defensive line because it wasn't entirely great last year, and Kancey is the best pretty much interior defensive lineman available. They do have Jordan Davis, who is the future there, but they're investing a little bit more in that as well. They're going to take Kancey here. Alrighty, the Packers are up again at the 15th pick. Now, here's the thing. There's many routes that the Packers could go here because they got their wide receiver of the future, right? We could see them go with Darnell Wright. We could see them go with Brian Branch. We could see them go with like Dalton Kincaid. Here's the thing. This draft is going to be very risky, and I'm probably gonna take a huge reach here, and I'll explain why. Dalton Kincaid, yes, he's probably the most athletic tight end in this class, but the Packers love to run the ball, so they're probably gonna want somebody that can run block. Brian Branch, the safety. Now, that's probably the biggest need on the Packers right now is safety. But also could be a potential reach. The Packers don't really reach on guys. They never have, and I don't think they will in this draft. The head coach and the manager and staff in the front office have really never really reached on anybody in the last few drafts that they have done. And then Darnell Wright, I mean, obviously he's been moving up in drafts tremendously, but he hasn't outside of his performance in the bowl to where he did well against Will Anderson Jr. I mean, he's 6'5", 333. He's pretty good, and he's also very young, but he still has that third round projected pick. I also haven't seen a whole lot of Packers news on Darnell Wright either. I don't think they're buying into him. So I'm going to do something very risky here. And I think the Packers will take Michael Mayer here. Yes, Packers taking 2 receiving threats in the first round. I believe that they will need a tight end of the future, and Michael Myers not going to be there for them in the second round. Now, they could trade up in the second round for it, especially if they get 2 second-round picks, but Michael Myers may be taken, I bet you he'll be taken like in the first round still with either the Cowboys or the Bengals, maybe even the Saints. You never know. And so I think this is the first reach that they will technically do, but they have missed on so many tight end picks. They have for years, and it's gotten very frustrating and annoying. And now with Michael Mayer, I think he's the best tight end in this prospects because, as I've said before, he's very balanced all around with his run block game and his receiving game. And the Packers, they love the tight ends that can block and also be a security blanket. Jordan Love needs a security blanket. And I think there's more motivation for the Packers front office to do this because they've had drama with Aaron Rodgers, and I think that's a reason why they haven't drafted or taken any of these receivers when they need them most because they've had drama between each other. And I think just to spite Aaron Rodgers in this scenario with him going to the Jets, I think they're going to take 2 elite receiving threats right off the bat with Jackson Smith and Jibba, and then Michael Mayer. Alrighty, and the Commanders are up on the clock. So one of their big draft needs is offensive line, just offensive line in general. That defense is actually pretty decent. But that offensive line needs some help. Now they could go with quarterback here, but I didn't put that there mainly because I think that they'll give Sam Howell a shot. And worst case scenario, if he doesn't, they just fall down tremendously next year, and then they take like Caleb Williams next year. But I think they're gonna go with Darnell right here. Now, he normally plays right tackle, but he could easily be moved to left with his size. And he did well against Will Anderson Jr. I think they're going to buy in on his upside. Yes, I did just trash the man, but I think the Commanders will be willing to take a risk on this type of guy. So I think they're going to take Darnell Wright. Alrighty, we are on the clock here with the Steelers. So there's a lot of ways that the Steelers could go. Now, I've heard reports that they love Deontay Banks. They love Deontay Banks at corner. But Joey Porter is also still here, and his father was a longtime Steeler, longtime legend Steeler cornerback for pretty much the majority of the 2000s where they won a couple Super Bowls. So there's some emotional, also pretty I mean, he has great potential at 6'2" and 190. But here's the thing. I mean, it's the emotional aspect. Now Deontay Banks is technically a bit more polished, 6 foot 197, so kind of the same size, just a hair shorter. We could also see them go with offensive tackle here because that's a pretty huge need for for the Steelers offense. So it's kind of hard to tell what they're gonna go with here, but I think I'm gonna have the same mentality with the Steelers as I did with the Titans. They the Titans and the Steelers have have one thing in common. They love to win in the trenches. Now, defensive line is great with T.J. Watt, Casey Hayward, Larry Ojanobi, and Alex Highsmith, right? But that offensive side of the line has been absolute trash. Now they've made some efforts into it by signing James Daniels to harp that right guard position, but literally every other position on that offensive line needs some help as I've pretty much listed here. So tackle, I mean, I put tackles for both of them and then center. So the right guard where James Jones is at is the only position that's safe. They need to invest in some offensive line to protect their quarterback who they selected in the first round next year, and Kenny Pickett. This guy's great pass blocking grade. His run grade could be a bit better, but you can work on him because he's not even 22 years old yet. He's 6'5" and 330 and three almost at 330, 311. Man is very big, so we're going to take Bodrick Jones. Alrighty, and the Lions are up here at the 18th pick. Now, if y'all remember with the 8th or the 7th, 6th pick, I apologize, that we took with them, they took Christian Gonzalez. So we're not going to go with cornerback again, even though unfortunately that's pretty much a good need to have right here. But I think with us passing up on an edge rusher or defensive lineman, I think we're going to go with defensive lineman here. Brian Brees, we do need somebody to swallow up the middle. Now, they did have a defensive tackle that they drafted last year that actually did pretty good at the end of the year, but that defensive line is something that Dan Campbell is going to want to invest in. I mean, he's very good, very, very versatile, as we see here. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. Now, his stats are not that great. I mean, his pass rush is better than his run defense, which is probably, unfortunately, what he's going to need to work on, especially in the 4-3 defense that Dan Campbell runs. But we've seen that defense last year for the first 3 quarters of the year play absolute trash, and then all of a sudden they became an elite defense the last 4 games. So we could see a very good turnaround in Brian Brees here with that same scenario. I think they'll take Brian Brees. Alrighty, with the Buccaneers on the clock, this one's a pretty easy pick. Now, unfortunately, they have a ton of needs here, but I mean, with Will Levi falling all the way to the number 19 spot, they do need quarterback of the future. They signed Baker Mayfield to a 1-year deal, and Kyle Trask, who they drafted a couple years ago, has not really been it. He hasn't shown any promise, any potential, or really anything at all. So this is a low risk, high reward type of, well, not really actually. Taking a first round pick on a QB that will potentially fail is actually not low risk. But they're going to take the risk here because worst case scenario, actually there's a whole lot of worst case scenarios. They need a quarterback. Baker Mayfield's not it. So they're going to take Will Levi. The Cardinals are on the clock here. So if y'all remember, we took Tyree Wilson at the number 5th pick after we traded down with the Seahawks, and then we got the Seahawks 20th pick. Now here's the thing. Since we drafted edge rusher, and the Cardinals did sign Jonathan Gannon, who was the defensive coordinator all right. And the Cardinals are on clock here with the 20th pick, thanks to trading back with the Seahawks, and then taking at the 5th overall pick Tyree Wilson. Now, if y'all remember, the Cardinals did sign Jonathan Gannon, who was defensive coordinator of the NFC champion team, the Eagles. Now, with them going defensive line, that cornerback room needs some help tremendously in the secondary, and especially if Buda Baker is leaving. Now, that was one of the big news that I was talking about, but I think he's going to stay, mainly due to the fact that the Cardinals they need a veteran there. They need a presence there. I think they're gonna keep him. Now, if he does get traded away, I think they go with Brian Branch here in this scenario. But I think they're gonna go with Joey Porter here at the cornerback position because they did lose Byron Murphy to the Bears, They need or not the Bears, the Vikings. They need some help at that cornerback spot. And you have a defensive minded coach. They're going to get his two players that would be able to build around him for the future. So we're going to take Joey Porter. Alrighty, and the Chargers are on the clock here. So we could see them. They lost DeAndre Carter, and I think they still have Josh Palmer at the wide receiver position. I think that they could go with a wide receiver like Zay Flowers to have that solidified number wide receiver three spot. Now Keenan Allen, and I think it's either this year or next year to where his contract is done for, and I don't think the Chargers are going to want to resign him. So investing in a wide receiver this year is actually not that bad of an idea, but I can't ignore the fact that this team has had problems in that secondary, mainly due to the fact of injuries. But here's the thing: they lost Nasir Adderley to retirement, and even though Jerwin James is very, very good, I think they're going to want to get a free safety that goes along with him. And then the next best safety available here is Brian Branch. Now, the safety class is very thin, and they're wanting to win now, especially in the AFC West, where they were going against Patrick Mahomes, who can throw the ball fucking good. Now, this guy's run defense, is very good for a safety at 90.7 and coverage grade at 86. So this guy he'll probably play free safety alongside Derwin James, but he can also stop the run as well. So Brian Branch is easily the best pick here for this Chargers team. All right, and we are on the clock with the Ravens here at the 22nd pick, their second pick in this first round. Now, if y'all remember, we took Devin Witherspoon at number 8 thanks to trading with the Atlanta Falcons. So they do have a cornerback here. I don't think they're investing cornerback again. I think they'll probably go with either Nolan Smith or Miles Murphy. They like to go with best player available, and they don't need a tight end. They don't need a corner because they just drafted him. I think they'll go with Nolan Smith. This guy's very fast, very quick. He is a bit undersized, but Ravens love taking best available. They do need some edge rush help. Now, yes, they do have Okanu Uwe and then the other and Tyus Bowser, who have done decently well, but you could always use some depth. You can always use some depth. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. So we're going to take Nolan Smith. Alrighty, with the Vikings on the clock, now here's a problem. The Vikings have lost a lot of guys this year, and they don't have a whole lot of picks in this draft. So with them losing pretty much their entire defense and then also losing Adam Thielen, and then they may potentially lose Dalvin Cook to where they could take Bijan Robinson here. But I think they need to just take the mentality of, you know what, trade back this pick and then get as many picks as possible. I think we're going to try and get them to pretty much get the entire Bills draft haul. We're actually not going to we'll do next year's, and then because the Bills don't have a whole lot of picks, so this is the best case scenario for the Vikings. They're going to be able to get they're going to be able to first and third of this year by moving just back and then getting a fourth and fifth pick of next year, because the Vikings here only have 5 and the Bills only have 6. I think the Bills will be willing to take a risk on getting like a guy like Bijan Robinson. So we're going to offer the trade. They accept. This is a perfect scenario for the Vikings here, I believe, and I think the Bills will take Bijan Robinson. Alrighty, with the Jaguars on the clock, the offense was booming last year thanks to Christian Kirk actually living up to his contract, which we all thought was overpaid, and Trevor Lawrence being a stud. And Travis Etienne did very well, but one of the big key losses that they had was losing Jawan Taylor to AFC conference rival, the Kansas City Chiefs. So they need to keep Trevor Lawrence upright. They need to keep that offense moving, especially after their addition. After they have now addition. Oh my God! Alrighty, and the Jaguars are on the clock here. So here's the thing. The Jaguars did very well last year on the offense, booming with Trevor Lawrence popping off, Christian Kirk actually living up to his huge contract, Evan Ingram doing very well. That team overall did amazing. But they have one key loss in the offseason, and it was Jawan Taylor to AFC conference rival Kansas City Chiefs. Now, he was playing at the right tackle position, and you need to pretty much protect Trevor Lawrence now that he's shown that he's worth his first overall pick and that this offense is going to be booming, especially with the addition of Calvin Ridley this next year. So there's 2 tackles left available here. Now, they do need a right tackle specifically, as I listed here with the Jaguars. Now, they could use a center, but there is a right tackle here that I really love, and I think he's going to be taken a lot higher than what his ADP and PFF says, because he's 6'8", 374. DeJuan Jones, y'all have heard about him. This dude is so huge. His role is right tackle. I don't think the Jaguars want to take a risk on a guy like Anton Harrison, even though he may be technically better. The physical attributes of DeJuan Jones are just you cannot mess up. And a lot of times we've seen these guys who are projected late first round, early second get a lot higher picks just or go up, move up a lot higher just because of their physical attributes. So we're going to take at the Jaguars pick DeJuan Jones. Alrighty, we are on the clock here with the Giants. Now, I know a lot of Giants fans want to see a wide receiver taken. I get it. I really do get it, especially with them investing in Darren Waller and giving Daniel Jones a huge, huge bag. But that defense of that team still needs some help, and especially with the Cowboys and the Eagles in that same division, they do need some cornerback help. And unfortunately, or not fortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately for the Giants, Deontay Banks has fallen in this scenario, and I don't think they pass up on a cornerback that could be a potential star in this league. So I don't think they're gonna pass up on Deontay Banks and they'll take him. Alrighty, we are on the clock here with the Cowboys. Now this one's a clear and obvious pick. I think y'all know Dalton Kincaid is the best prospect here available, and the Cowboys do need a tight end after they lost Dalton Schultz. And Dalton Kincaid's a way better physically and athletically than Dalton Kincaid, and they're gonna be able to replace him. Plus, I think the Cowboys are going to want to make a win now move in such a player like Dalton Kincaid because they're very close to going to the Super Bowl, making it to the NFC Conference for the first conference championship game for the first time in almost 30 years. So even though it's not listed as a need for some godforsaken reason, I think the Cowboys will take Dalton Kincaid. Alrighty, and the Vikings are on the clock here. So there's a big old guy here that I don't think they'll try and mess up on, and that's Miles Murphy. This guy has good pass rushing grade, decent run defensive grade, but his physical attributes 6'5", 258. He is very good. Now, unfortunately, he didn't dominate the way that we all thought he would, especially at his size and playing at Clemson, because he only had 6 sacks this last year. I don't know what happened in 2022. He's kind of fallen off, but in 2021 he did pretty well. I don't. It's kind of weird. I think that's why he's gonna fall here. But there's a guy like him on the Vikings that are eerily similar in physical attributes in Danielle Hunter. They need somebody on that other side, especially after Zadarius Smith has fallen on the depth chart tremendously. So we're gonna take Miles Murphy. Alrighty, and the Bengals are on the clock. So this is the Bengals are kind of caught in dead man zone because if they could trade back, I seriously think they should. Because I really think that the only player that they should take if if they fall is Brian Branch because they need safety help after they lost Von Bell and Jesse Bates. Now we could see them go with cornerback here, but I don't think they'll believe in Emmanuel Forbes. Now his coverage grades are amazing, but look at his size, 166. That's not good at all, especially for a team that's wanting to win a championship now. So unfortunately, there's not really anything that PFF really wants to trade for. So we're kind of gonna do. It's very hard to see what they need because I mean they really only have 3 needs. Now we could see them invest in some edge rush help, even though they do have Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard who have been doing pretty well. So I think they lost Ario Ginobili not this season, but the season before, and so we could see them take a guy like Mozzie Smith to help run help stop the defensive run on this team. We could see them go a wide receiver here because Tyler Boyd is getting up there, and then alongside them too, they're going to want to give Joe Burrow as much weapons as possible because uh, T Higgins and Jamar Chase will be up for a huge contract soon. Now, tight ends wise, I don't these are all reaches. I think they could wait for somebody like Tucker Craft in the second round. That guy's very physical, very huge. So I'm going to be honest with you here. I think they're going to try if they're trying to win now. I think Mozzie Smith is the guy to go help stop that run defense. He's Don Terry Poe-esque type of guy. I think he's the best fit here for this weird dead man zone Bengals spot. Alrighty, we are on the clock here with the Saints. This one's a pretty easy pick. I don't think they go with wide. I mean, they could go with wide receiver, but Michael Thomas is still on the team. Jarvis Landry is still on the team, and Chris Olave is still on the team. Now we could see them try and get a Derek Carr, like Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison connection, but that defense needs help, and if they're wanting to compete in that AFC South, in the NFC South, I apologize. Will McDonald is the plug-in type of guy to go. He's a bit undersized, but I feel like Will McDonald. I think he's going to land on the Saints. This has kind of like been one of my few locks when it comes to the draft. I think they'll go with Will McDonald. And the Eagles are up next. So here's the thing. We already selected a pick with them at number 14 after trading back with the Patriots to get Kalijah Cansey. Now, Now, here's the thing. I think they are primed to take either an edge rusher here with these two guys or a wide receiver. And I think they go with wide receiver because they just gave Jalen Hurts the bag. And they already paid H.G. Brown as well. And Devontae Smith, it's going to be it's either this year or next year to where he's going to have another bag coming his way too. And the offense was great, but you can't surround your offense or your quarterback with enough weapons. They're probably going to go. I think they'll go with Zay Flowers here because I think he's the best prospect here with Jordan Addison. He's very quick, very fast. He'll open up a lot of things for that offense in Philadelphia. I think they take Zay Flowers. Alrighty, and the Chiefs got very lucky again, as they always do in the NFL, whether that's the draft or in real life in their games. NFL and refs love them. I'm pretty sure the Chiefs are 100% rigged to win all these games. But I think they're going to go with Jordan Addison here. I mean, he's the best wide receiver available. They need some wide receiver help out there. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster. Sky Moore is still there, but they they just need wide receivers. They need young, cheap wide receivers. That's literally all I have to explain. I don't think I need to explain myself. So, alrighty. Let me know what y'all think how I did down below. This is my overall view. I'll do a slow scroll here for y'all to see. I think the worst pick that I probably had here was probably Darnell Wright to the Commanders. Either that or Lucas Van Ness to the Texans, even though I think all these guys will probably go there. I think those two were my worst. I think the best pick that I had here, or the most logical one, or the best steal, was Bodrick Jones to the Steelers. That I think that would be a tremendous pick for them. Let me know what y'all think how I did down below. I'll see y'all later. Peace.